Hey everyone, thanks for joining me, Only Run Very Noob. Welcome back to the channel. What we do at this channel is we play a lot of Bravo, so that's what I'm going to get into today. But first, I just want to say thanks to each and every one of you guys that subscribe to my channel. We just hit 200 subs. I never thought I would really even get to like 50, if I'm being honest. This was more something for me to do just for fun, kind of pass the time, and you know, do something while I watch my videos. I wanted to go back and watch my gameplay to just kind of get better at this game, and I thought, why not just throw it on YouTube? And all of you guys have made this just such a good experience, so thank you, thank you, thank you. And why don't we just move on to the game here? Today we're playing against Katsu. Funnily enough, this is actually a local to me. We play quite a bit. I've been playing Armories with this guy for about 2 years. I feel like we both started playing like the same week. So we've kind of grown as players together. We play a lot. And he's sort of known for always bringing a little spice. Like, you'll see it today. So against Katsu, obviously we don't bring any of the null runes, so that makes our equipment fairly easy. And the sideboarding we'll get to right now. I don't like to play Sigils or Zealous Belting, so those are out. I don't like to play Red Unmovable, those are out. And I think Pummel is good, I just don't really know where to fit it in because I like Fate Foreseen better. But we do have room for one red Pummel because I don't run Pulverize, since giving a Kodachi -4 is just not really the business. The plan into Katsu is, of course, to try to mitigate their huge crazy turns and to disrupt using things like Chokeslam or Starstruck or Terra Sunder or Crippling Crush or Spinal Crush. We just have a bunch of ways to disrupt them. Even Blue Disable and Command and Conquer can kind of slow them down because Katsu gets exponentially better with the size of their hand. Like a 2-card Katsu hand is not very good, and a 5-card Katsu hand is just absolutely crazy. It can like double bonds you. So Arsenal Disruption is pretty good. Even something just like Cranial Crush, if you have full tempo and draw like a all blue hand, it makes it so you don't have to worry about Mask Trigger for a turn, and it also turns off like Whelming Gust Wave and Ancestral Empowerment. So while not a key threat that you're looking to resolve, when it's an option, it actually sort of does stuff. And Boulder Drop, like pummeling a Boulder Drop's good, but we don't really run all 3 pummels here. I might try to find room for them. Maybe cut 1 blue unmovable for a red pummel and just go down to like 38 blues or something. See a fairly standard setup. They're not on Tunic, they are on Heart and Cross Strap, which you see quite a bit. I'm not sure if you see it as much as Tunic these days, but you do see it, and it's good for Katsu. They get like a free Surging Strike or a free something. We're going second. We're going to look to block with 3 cards and hopefully be able to keep our Spinal Crush in hand. We want to have one of those key disruptive threats on our turn because this is going to be like the only 4-card hand we get to keep for free since we go second. They start with Kodachi. I always let the first Kodachi hit unless they pitch a red. If they pitch a red, I'll just block the first Kodachi. But second Kodachis we do block. I pick the worst blue, I believe, to block with, and they just pass. Kind of interesting. Normally you see like a follow-up. Maybe they have a bunch of defense reactions. Maybe they have some cards that combine with other cards that they would rather keep. But our turn's fairly simple. We don't have any blues we want in Arsenal, so we're just going to dominate this Spinal Crush while also making a Surge. And more often than not, we're probably just baiting out like a defense reaction here. But we don't have any other reasonable options, so it's quite easy turn cycle for us. They just pass, which makes me think I'm getting like 2 defense reactions here. And if we're getting 2 defense reactions here, I kind of feel like they might have 3, because otherwise, wouldn't they want to like save the sink below for the arsenal? Or maybe their 3-card hand is actually pretty decent aggressive, a pretty decent aggressive hand that they just kind of want to throw it at us and try to keep us off of a big hand. Well, we draw another one of our key threats. We even have a surge up, so I'm sort of just looking to block 3 and throw the Crippling Crush off 2 blues undominated. Hopefully being able to utilize our 3 block to turn off their mask. They just throw an Enlightened Strike. So this is kind of interesting. Our 3 block is basically just gaining 3 life here. It's not like stopping a mask trigger. It's not stopping like a Katsu trigger. So I think I kind of want to just take 7 and then dominate the Crippling Crush. I sort of think that this is a defense reaction that they have behind in their hand because they used 2 defense reactions last turn on a Spinal. So they're probably just trying to mitigate damage because the Spinal Crush effect doesn't even stop like Enlightened Strike. Like even if they're crushed with Spinal Crush, they could still just Enlightened Strike. But even if this is a react, they have to give us the react and an armor. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I am supposed to just block 3, because when I throw a Naked Crippling, they might still just give me a react and an armor to try to keep like a 3-card hand. Yeah, maybe Undominated Crippling here is a little better. But I do just take the 7. I think that might have been a slight leak. That's why I like to watch my recorded games, because, you know, when you're in the middle of a game, there's so much going on that you're thinking about. But when you're watching a game, you can kind of just analyze what's happening right in front of you. And the further I analyzed it, the more I thought, like, well, we already put him on a defense reaction. And even if Crippling Crush is undominated, he'll probably still just give us defense reaction, a card, and an armor. I guess dominating does have the upside that maybe this isn't a reaction. Like maybe it's like an Art of War or something. And as it looks, maybe our decision to dominate, we did get a little lucky here and sort of force a awkward sort of defensive Art of War. Yeah, so their arsenal was a Surging Strike, which I don't know, maybe for them I would have liked for them to not use the Sink Below on the Spinal Crush, and they could have even just like taken an extra 4 damage and gotten crushed and sort of IP'd themselves if they want to keep the Surging Strike, but they could have even just blocked with the Surging Strike to take 3 instead of 1 and then have a Sink Below and Arsenal there. I don't know though, I'm not really a ninja player. But it feels like this was a pretty good turn cycle for me. They have 1 card in hand. Oh, and it is a blue where they get the Kodachi, so our threat of Command and Conquer is not that good here. And our defense reactions are also not very good here. They're clearly just going to go Kodachi. Here's a little spice, Burdens of the Past. But I think we're actually going to block one of these Kodachis with like Fate Foreseen. It sounds pretty bad though. But I still get to keep a reaction in Arsenal, and I don't like IP myself by just like not Fate Foreseeing a Kodachi and like keeping it in hand for their follow-up turn. I would much rather draw like a threat than hold defense reactions. Because we are just going to make a surge and throw Command and Conquer, which is doing a little bit of a brutal assault cosplay here. Yeah, I think I want to bottom sink below because I want a threat. It's like the whole reason to Fate Foreseen. Although reactions against Katsu are fairly good. Except when they only Kodachi you, huh? So yeah, we just throw 6. We fully expect him to just take this 6 if he has any sort of reasonable hand. And we draw kind of a bad one. And they pop their cross strap, so they're going in here. Unfortunately, we have two block blues in our hand. I guess we can sink one away and then try to hold one to like hammer for 4. But on a heart and cross strap turn, I wouldn't be surprised if I end up needing to block with all of my cards. So against Surging Strike, I actually like to use my Civic Steps because all of their follow-ups they want to do already have Go Again. I'm not sure if that's totally correct or safe, but like let's say for instance I block this Surging Strike with like Imposing Visage and Civic Steps, and they like E-Strike draw a card as a follow-up. Like sure they got to get value off of the Quicken, but they lose all of the value of their Surging Strike starter, which I think they probably want to get if they're using cross strap. So I think I do end up blocking this with Civic Steps in a blue. I could also block with like Rouse and an Imposing Visage and save my armor. But if they're using cross strap, that definitely indicates to me that they are trying to go in. I guess I block with Showtime instead of Visage. Not a huge difference here. And we just kind of try to brace for impact, try to mitigate this turn the best we can, and then just move forward with a game where they don't have their chest piece anymore. The follow-up Whelming looks like it would be a nice target for our sink below, but they have a breaking scales up, so I think blocking this for 5 is fairly prudent here. It isn't a mask trigger though, so like letting them breaking scales just to trigger the card draw might be okay, but it also triggers the Katsu, which will let them go and look for a Bonds. I'm not 100% sure what they could fetch with Bonds. That might be something I look at here, but just blocking with 5 like this is also reasonable. I think I probably should have looked at their graveyard to see what they are going to get with Bonds though. We block 5 and they can go over it here. They actually have Ancestral Empowerment plus Breaking Scales. And that also indicates to me they really, really want not only the card draw, but probably the Katsu trigger. And I think that might be worth just sink blowing here. Because the sink below, the card draw is like 3 value. The 1 damage is like 1 value, so we're sort of getting like 4 value out of our sink below, and then we're also negating the value of the Katsu, which if they don't have a Bonds, our sink below is actually like 11 value here if Bonds represents 8 damage. Again, not sure if they have a Fluster Fist or a Dishonor in there. It might only be like a 10 value sink below, which is still quite good, but we have to dodge them having the Bonds in hand. But if they had Bonds in hand already, oh, so it looks like they can only get a Whelming Gust Wave, so it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, that's like an 11 value sink below here. But yeah, so like I was saying, if they already had Bonds in hand, I don't know if they would have used Ancestral plus Breaking Scales here, because the Bonds of Ancestry could have still represented a mask trigger, because they could have bondsed Kodachi and then Whelming Gust Wave red after the Kodachi, and used Breaking Scales plus Ancestral Empowerment to mask trigger. There is always the chance that the Ancestral Empowerment drew a Bonds of Ancestry, though, and that could be fairly dangerous for us. I do sink the 2 block. That's kind of an interesting decision, because maybe I would have rather just hammered, like known that I could hammer for 4. But maybe I was afraid of a follow-up like we see here, and I'm just going to block this for 3. And unfortunately give our Katsu opponent a 4 or 5 card hand next turn. But I don't think the Starstruck and Arsenal is worth taking 3 here. I think I just want to preserve my life and hopefully get a good turn cycle. Although Starstruck and Arsenal might have been better than 3 life here. Just because in the future maybe we could set up a Surge and then throw it off of 2 blues or something. But I think what happened is when I decided to sink the Rouse, I was already just sort of looking for a 3 block. So maybe that's what I was thinking in my head. Oh, this would be a great hand if we could just play it, but I feel like we're not going to be able to play our hand with our Katsu opponent on 5 cards. They don't have Breaking Scales or Heart and Crosstrap anymore, which means it'll be a lot easier for us to make blocking decisions due to the Breaking Scales, and also a lot harder for them to have like a pseudo 6-card hand by having a chest that's basically a yellow pitch. They go Kodachi. I'm totally fine with taking Kodachis here. It's so much easier to block the 3rd link when they don't have Breaking Scales. Sorry, they're still doing construction. If you hear that knocking, I know I definitely hear it. And here we see another spicy inclusion, a Give and Take. So this is kind of a hard card to block, right? If we block it, we give him back a Surging Strike on top, or like whatever he might want. Maybe he has a Surging Strike in Arsenal that he's going to save, and he could just go get like a red Whelming. But either way, this Give and Take is actually super awkward because we don't want to let it hit because then he's going to draw a card. But if we block it with any of our cards, he's also going to get to set up his next hand with one of his key threats, which is something I don't want to do. And basically that only leaves armor. And I think I am going to block this with Civic Steps and Crater Fist. We don't need to block this for more than 3 because Ancestral Empowerment only targets ninja attacks, so he couldn't target this. And I'm expecting his hand to hopefully already have attacks with Go again, so that our Civic Steps isn't too bad, because he already has 2 Enlightened Strikes in the graveyard. And there might be a Snatch in a Katsu list, but there's not always. And if we're seeing stuff like Give and Take, that's probably like taking the flex slot that Snatch would occupy. We just see a Gust Wave. I don't want to let Katsu trigger for him to go get a Bonds, so I am going to block this. I think I should block it with Disable, but I block it with Starstruck for some reason. We're not going to be able to play this Crippling. I want to have this Crippling for Arsenal. So if that's the case, I could make a Surge and hammer for 6 with the Starstruck. And if there's a follow-up I want to block, I could just block with a Starstruck then. And having a Starstruck in my deck after I pitch here is definitely better than having a Disable. They end up just having a blue Bonds of Ancestry. It must be in the deck for some sort of Pouncing Lynx sideboard plan, but then they also just don't want to side out their blues, which seems reasonable. So I'm taking 2 and then 3. No mask trigger on either of these. So I actually do think I'm just not going to block. I'm just going to take 5 down to 22, and then make a Surge and hammer back for 6, setting up our Crippling Crush plus a Surge for the follow-up turn. Feel a little bit behind here, but not as bad as you might think, because They're going to have a 4-card hand because unless their hand just isn't good, they're going to take the hammer for 6 and go down to 24. But then we're only down 2 life. We have a bunch of armor, and we're going to have a 2-card Crippling Crush, or like I guess a 3-card Crippling Crush. 2 blues from hand and Crippling Crush and Arsenal to flip the tempo here. Yeah. So we have the 2 blues for our Crippling Crush, and we have a pummel, which is a little awkward. I don't really want to block with the pummel. It's our only pummel in our deck, so I'd really like to use that sort of as like a sneaky feature. Not that I'm 100% sure that my opponent, even though they're a local, knows that I only have 1 pummel, but they might know that I only run 1 pummel into Katsu, so it might be harder for them to play around it, which means it's easier for us to sort of have blowouts with it. They pitch a yellow to Kodachi. I'm not sure that's too much worse than them pitching a blue to Kodachi. They do have a lot of 1-drops these days. I don't know if there's spinning wheel kick in his list. I don't think so. But we already saw Give and Take. We see Descendant Gust Wave. But a lot of times they can just go Kodachi, Kodachi, and then play like some 0-drops. So I'm definitely not blocking Kodachis. I'm from the church of don't block Kodachis, block 3rd chain link. And my devotion to that church only gets stronger with the lack of breaking scales on the board for our Katsu opponent. Oh my gosh, I just immediately go against what I just say. So maybe I want to keep my whole hand? Maybe I'm afraid of Mask Trigger, but I don't want to block anything. Like maybe I just want to dominate this Crippling Crush. That seems like a play I wouldn't make that often. But I kind of get rewarded for it here because the Give and Take doesn't have a Mask Trigger. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe whatever makes decisions in my brain is like a little bit psychic, but doesn't let my conscious mind know, because I feel like this was such a good second Kodachi block, and honestly, I don't block Kodachis ever. So maybe I just got some help from up above here. And they pitched the red to play Give and Take, so they have no follow-up here. And I don't know if you could see this card here, but it is Tiger Swipe. Our opponent plays this spicy hybrid build with tigers, and it's a lot better than you might think. I think it's actually quite interesting because we see that he still has like surging whelming lines, but then he also has like the hyper turbo combo potential that like Tigers gives you. Funny little story, at Nationals in the PTI event, he killed an Icelander on turn 0, and his Icelander opponent had to read every single Tiger card. But yeah, I'm just going to dominate this Crippling Crush. And Arsenal a pummel. Opponent immediately goes to reaction phase, so double reaction's bad for us here. I would have preferred him only have 1 reaction and need to use his Breeze Rider boots, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Still deals 3 damage, right? So we're not like too far behind on life. A 3-guard Katsu hand is like okay. It can be like Kodachi, Surging Strike, Whelming Gust Wave, but without Heart and Cross Strap and Breaking Scales, it's like not super crazy. I go to check for Ancestral Empowerments. I only see 1, but who am I kidding? I'm just blocking Be Like Water for 3 almost every time. I just make him have it. Ooh, and we get to just take this Kodachi for 1. They did not have a good follow-up, and with a Surge setup, we get to throw this Starstruck. which should get the tempo back for us. And with a pummel locked and loaded in Arsenal, we could really turn this game around with a 1-2 punch here. They give us 2 3 blocks in armor, so they still have a 3-card hand. We have a Command and Conquer and a Pummel and a Spinal Crush. That seems pretty good to me. We could just try to not block anything and pummel a Command and Conquer, arsenaling Spinal Crush. We could block with the Command and Conquer, make a Surge, and throw Spinal. So we have a few options here. We could even like end up blocking with 2 cards and just throwing Command and Conquer, making a Surge. So our 3, 4, and 5 card hands are all fairly good here. They pitch a Roar of the Tiger to Kodachi for 1, not blocking it. They're going to Kodachi for 1 again, not blocking it. And then they Descendant Gust Wave, pitching their last card. I don't want Master Trigger, so I'm probably just going to block this with Command and Conquer. Just block it with Command and Conquer, make a Surge, throw Spinal. And hopefully they just don't have as many 3 blocks as they would need to block this Spinal effectively. But even if they do, a 2-card hand out of Katsu is super sort of mid. They go like Kodachi, Kodachi, attack. And often the attack is for like 3. We still have plenty of armor too, even if we wanted to like preserve our hand with the pummel. Ooh. We see them need to block with 3 cards, and we're very happy about that. We immediately draw up into sort of a nasty one. We can pummel or rouse the Ancients, and that's always just like sort of insane. We get to pitch Showtime, play Rouse, reveal our 2 attacks, then pitch one of our attacks to pummel. We have 1 floating and a blue in hand. We make a Surge and then hammer for 6. That's 11 plus 6. That's 17 just raw damage plus like 3 value from them discarding off the pummel, which they almost certainly will do. This is just definitely a very nasty turn cycle, and we got to Starstruck into Spinal into pummeling a Rouse, which Katsu doesn't like to see, I can tell you that. They immediately no-block our Rouse, probably calculating that the Rouse is 7 plus 6, so 13, so they'd be able to keep their whole 5-card hand. But not only do we make them discard a card, but we actually threaten lethal here, so they have to block, at least with like Mask, to not die, if they want to keep their hand. But if we get another card, that's also very good for us. They do end up just blocking with the Mask. They want to keep their big hand. Going to 1 for them is definitely very scary though, because now I can just block out, keep a blue, and hammer for 4, and if they don't have a react, they have to just give us 2 cards for the rest of the game. Rolling into dice with an Art of War turn. Ooh, but they pitch a red. Not ideal from our opponent. And then another Art of War pitching another red. Yeah, I think this game is just they needed something better than that here. Draw card's a little interesting, although I guess the difference between 7 and 9 are not big. I'm probably not supposed to block here. I'm probably just supposed to take 7. I can even just, like, yeah, give him my armor. Take 3, and then dominate crippling and hope it's good enough, which I have to imagine it will be, even if they have react. Even if they drew react and draw another one next turn, they can only block 8. Although I guess it could be like reinforce the line, attack from hand, and reaction in arsenal. Or attack, double reinforce, whatever works. But nope, they do not have the perfect draw there to stop our turn. And even if they did, us being at 12 and them being at 1 wasn't going to end well for them. This is a fun game. I think I was pretty far behind for quite a while, and then I got to just sort of take advantage of the fact that there was no breaking scales on the field for a long time, so that Kodachis are a lot easier to take. I got to take advantage of the fact that I drew like Starstruck into Spinal into a Rouse the Ancient's turn, that I had a Pummel in Arsenal, and they were just not at a high enough life total to withstand that and sort of swing back. And I also got a little lucky that they had a double Art of War turn where they had to pitch 2 reds and just sort of did nothing with it. They double Art of War and then E-Strike for 7 me. So hopefully this was a fun one. It's always a fun time playing with Shifty Prince over here. I don't want to disclose his real name just in case. He doesn't want that broadcast out to the internet. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting matchup with Katsu. Always an interesting matchup playing against Shifty as well. He's always got some spicy cards. He's always doing some cool stuff. So hopefully you learned a little bit about my thought process. I'm sure if he watches this video, he might get a little insight into how I tend to play against him. So, you know, maybe that'll help him more specifically as well. And yeah, hopefully this was a fun one. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe down below. Let me know what heroes you'd like to see me play against. Maybe specifically what strategies you would like to see me play against, or even try with Bravo. So thanks for stopping by, and until next time.